Just like a couple of weeks ago, we were training a new computer operator. And, hopefully, Benjamin, did you hit the record button? All right. As I'm up here today, there's a few things that we have to help promote interest or a little bit of attention, or, if nothing else, the desire to earn candy. As we go through today's message, you're going to see a few things. We're going to talk about a few things. So here's your primer. First, no true faults. Benjamin advanced first, an 80s movie. It won't be complicated. Trust me, it's an easy quiz at the end of the church. Next, a former pastor of Whiting. Third, Tom's current sport. And fourth, the disciples' careers. That's it. At the end of the day, or at the end of the message, if you can come up and talk to me about them, you don't even have to name them all. Just tell me you want some candy. I'll give it away. I don't want to take it all home. I got little kids too. Yeah, we know who wants the candy. We know who will be paying attention. So the question is whether I can tie all of those things together as we go through today's message. We're going to start with that former pastor. And it's not Pastor Jim. The former pastor is Pastor Randall. One day, Pastor Randall and I were discussing some things, and I was a little befuddled because he was talking about how difficult something was and how challenging it was to get things in a certain area done. And I said, I don't see why that's hard. It's an easy thing to do. And Pastor Randall pointed out that it's easy to me because I'm good at it. Pastor Randall liked to point out that when you're good at something, it's remarkably easy to do. Now, there are things that I am not good at. I am not good at singing. I don't like to sing, and it does not come easy to me. In fact, it comes really, really hard, so hard that I'm a terrible singer, so I don't like to inflict it on others. Not everything is easy, and not everything that's difficult is impossible. Obviously, for me, one of the things that I find remarkably easy is talking. I like to get up and speak. It's not a challenging thing to do, and I've always said, give me a topic and 5 minutes, and I'll talk about it for 20 minutes. I just need a little bit of time to think it through. For others, music is remarkably easy. Holly sits here week in and week out and plays all of the songs that we sing on the piano. We have people that stand up here and lead us in song. It would take me a year to get a song reasonably figured out so I could sing it in front of people, and we have people that find it very easy to stand up here and sing. Some people are really good at listening. Those of us who are good at talking aren't always that good at listening. But there are people who are remarkably good at listening and hearing what other people are saying, or even what other people would like to say. Some people are really good at cooking. Some people are good at cleaning and organizing. There are lots of things that people are good at, and when they're good at it, it comes easy. Sometimes those things come naturally. You know, I like to think that people who sing well have a natural talent to sing. I know that's not actually the truth. I know that a lot of people who are good at singing are good because they sang in elementary school, and they sang in middle school, and they sang in high school, and they sang in college, and they continue to sing into their adult lives. They study for years and years to get good at it. Sometimes it's experience. You may just have done something a lot, not necessarily studied it in depth, but just do it a lot. People that do, yards and do pottery and things like that, they just do it a lot, and experience gives them the ability. Practice. I play the guitar. I don't play it horribly well. I would probably play a lot better if I picked it up more than 3 times a year. But if you practice and continue to do something, it can become easier, if not easy. When things don't come easy, people find themselves questioning whether or not they can do it. They say, well, I'm no good at that. There are lots of things you think about in church that, we get that. CEF is one of them we run into. When we're looking for teachers for CEF, a common response is, I don't understand. I've never gone to seminary. I didn't go to class. I didn't, I'm not ready to be a teacher like that. They question it. Obviously, standing up here, is something where people would say, oh, I'm not a public speaker. I don't want to do that. But that's where challenge comes in. Sometimes there are things that are challenges. In my own life, I mentioned music. I play the guitar. I don't play it very well. I play it because kids at camp like to hear people play guitar and they like to sing with a guitar. Endurance sports, right? Marathons, triathlons, the Ironman, 50, the fall 50, ultra marathons. Those do not come easy to me, and really, I am not that good at them. I go out and do them because it was a challenge and because some people asked me and pushed me to try it and do it, but in no way am I an outstanding runner. I'm not competitive even at the local level, much less the elite level. Speed skating, my current endeavor, right? I speed skate because my kids started to do it and I got involved with it. A lot of little kids and people will see me and say, wow, you're really fast. You're a really good skater. And I always tell them, wait till you see people who actually know what they're doing. Wait till you put me up against someone who knows how to speed skate. Then suddenly I'm going to look really, really slow. Doesn't come easy, but I keep working at it. I keep trying. Sometimes we're called to do things that take us outside our comfort zone. I grew up skating on what we call quads, a roller skate. 4 wheels, 2x2, right? Nice boot, just skate in a circle, have fun, hang out with your friends. That's what I grew up skating with. When I took and put on an inline skate and said, go real fast, I wasn't ready for that. That's not what I was good at. But I did it. I tried it. I keep plugging along. In the 1980s, there was a movie called Mr. Mom. There's going to be a couple of pictures here. Now, Michael Keaton plays a newly unemployed father turned stay-at-home dad. He quickly learns that being a full-time dad is not his strong suit. If anyone has seen the movie, it's sort of like a comedy of errors. All of these things start happening, right? I got the first one. Here's Dad trying to cook dinner. Go back, Benjamin. We'll look at that a little bit more. Dad's trying to cook dinner, and it is a shambles, right? This, just so you know, that's what my kitchen counter looks like a lot of times if we're cooking at home, because that's not necessarily our strong suit. Then he's got to take the kids out, and got to change one of the babies. So not only is he not quite sure how to handle getting the baby's butt dried and getting the baby ready for a new diaper, but the other kids, they're offering their own sort of assistance, and those of us with kids know how kids like to help. So he's not very good at it. It is a whole string of him doing things wrong and messing it up and making himself look kind of the fool. But eventually he figures things out, and there's a point in the movie where things start to change. And the stay-at-home dad becomes kind of, Ryan, get ready, trumpet blowers, people are playing reveille to wake him up. He figures things out. He starts to figure his kids out. He starts to figure the system out. He starts to figure out what it means to be dad on a full-time basis. Eventually, he becomes pretty good at it. Becomes the person that other parents are looking to for the answer. Now, 2,000 years ago, we have another story of people who stepped outside their comfort zone. It started when Jesus began his ministry and started reaching out to others. Think about who Jesus called into his ministry. I'm going to be reading some verses. These are all coming from the NIV because that's the version that I choose to use most at home. If you want to look in the Pew Bibles, you can. I'm going to start with Matthew 4, verses 18 to 22. And again, this is Jesus at the beginning of his ministry. Matthew 4, 18 to 22. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." At once they left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, preparing their nets. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Now, in addition to Peter and Andrew, James and John, we also believe that Thomas and Nathanael were fishermen as well. So here you have basically half of the people that Jesus was calling, and they're all fishermen. If you turn a few pages further, you'll get to Matthew 9. And in Matthew 9:9, we read, "As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. 'Follow me,' he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him." You have to flip a bunch of pages further, but I'm going to read from Colossians chapter 4, because there's another one of the early leaders who isn't addressed earlier in the Gospels. But in Colossians 4, verse 14, Paul is writing to the Colossians, and he's referencing another one of the church leaders. And he says, "Our dear friend Luke, the doctor, and Demas send greetings." So what do we got? We got a bunch of fishermen. We got a tax collector. We got a doctor. We're not sure about everybody else. There's belief that Judas Iscariot was an accountant of some. He handled money because that's what he did for the group. You notice what was missing? Not once. You didn't read about the Jewish rabbi. You didn't read about the Pharisee. You didn't read about the Sadducee. You didn't read about any kind of priest. You read about some guys who fished. Read about a tax collector, and if you know anything about tax collectors in the day, not only wasn't that a really respected position, it was actually kind of despised. Think government politicians today. That's kind of what you get with tax collectors. Not well received. They were called to follow Jesus. They were called to be his disciples. They were called to be the. Now, being a disciple was not second nature. It wasn't something that these men just grew into and were like, "No, I'm going to be a disciple. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to grow up and follow the religious leader of the day." They were called, and they struggled with it. We know that Jesus reached out to them a lot. He had, "Okay, guys, this is the story I just told. This is what it meant." He had to explain himself to them. He had to make sure they understood what he was saying. Sometimes when Jesus asked them to trust in him, they failed, right? We think about Peter walking on the water, right? He initially has all of his faith in Jesus, all his trust. Things get in the way, and all of a sudden he starts to sink into the water. He failed in having that faith. They struggled with exactly what it meant to be a follower. But there was an important thing that they did. They got up and they followed him. They didn't question Jesus when he said, "Come follow me." They simply did it. They answered the call that Jesus gave them. That means a lot. Think about it. Jesus says, you'll have to take up your cross. They took up their crosses when they followed Jesus. Some of them would eventually hang from those crosses. Told them that sometimes, right? In John 21, verses 18 and 19, Peter is told, "Right now you do what you want. You go where you want. In time, you won't go where you want. People will dress you as they see fit. They'll take you where they want to go." Because Peter was going to follow Jesus dying on the cross. But they answered the call. They were there. Now, when my kids got involved with speed skating, as I said, it wasn't natural for me. It wasn't easy even, right? The easy part was supporting my kids. That I'm really good at. I like to support kids, especially when it's in athletic endeavors and following fitness goals. I love doing that. I go out and coach triathletes for that reason. I work at the brigade because of that. I love kids. I love working with kids. I love helping kids to do things athletically. But getting out on the floor and actually skating in circles, that wasn't easy. It's still not easy. I work at it, every week. I work at it when we have practice. I've had some in the audience told me that maybe it's time to hang up the skates and retire. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep plugging away at it. Eventually, I'll get better. I'm not going to get great. I'll get better. I'll get a little bit faster, but I'll continue to help kids get better, and hopefully those kids will eventually crush me on the rink. But just like in speed skating, the same thing applies in the church. Christ calls us to serve his ministry. We don't always know how. It's not always in some big, huge event. We're not all being called to go to seminary and be pastors. We're not all being called to leave the country and go on a mission trip and live in Thailand or China or elsewhere for the next 5 years. But we're being called to serve Christ's ministry. Sometimes those calls are going to ask us to do what the disciples had to do. The call is going to ask us to step outside of our comfort zone and do things that maybe we're not quite confident about. To do things that we're not entirely sure we're capable of doing. Say, no, it's not my gig. It's not my job. It's not my deal. It's hard to say, yes, Jesus, I will follow you. Sometimes, though, all we have to do is put down the fishing nets and follow Jesus. Sometimes that's enough because we can pick up the rest along the way, and we know that Jesus will always be there, one way or another, to help us figure it out and to help us do what we need to do. That might be through the Bible. It might be through others in the church who will give assistance, calling us to do things that his ministry requires. Our job is to answer that call and to figure out where he needs us most. Join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we all have things that we're awfully good at. Sometimes the challenge is figuring out how to use those things that we're good at as a resource for the ministry of your church. Some of the things that we're good at are just inherently easy. It's easy where it fits in. The ability to stand up and talk to people, the ability to play music, the ability to organize things. We have a lot of other skills that don't necessarily fit in as easily. We ask that you be with us and help us to see how we can answer your call through the gifts that you have. I also ask that you be with us and give us the strength to answer the call when that call seems outside of our normal strengths and gifts. Sometimes you call us to do things that are difficult. Sometimes you call us to things that help us to grow and help us to become better as much as it helps others that we're serving. So be with the church, both here and abroad, as people seek to answer those calls that you are giving to them. Help us to have the strength to do like Peter and John and Thomas and Nathaniel. Give us the strength to put down the nets, to leave those things that we're comfortable doing, and to step outside and to do those things.